On this week's NESN Patriots podcast, we'll discuss the Patriots' win over the Miami Dolphins, which also included Antonio Brown's New England debut, and we will preview the Patriots' upcoming matchup with the lowly New York Jets. Hello and welcome to this week's NESN Patriots podcast. I am Doug Kide, joined as always by Zach Cox. Zach, how are you doing?
Doing a lot better than Adam Gase right now.
Yeah.
Adam's had a rough couple of weeks down there in East Rutherford with Sam Darnold coming down with mono, and then now his backup Trevor Siemian breaking his ankle, or tore some ligaments in his ankle, I believe. Pretty nasty injury. So now Gase, who obviously is the head coach of the team the Patriots will be playing this weekend, will be heading into what was already a very difficult matchup for the Jets with his third-string quarterback. So, not ideal for gangrene coming in here this weekend.
No, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but one initial thought on the Jets is that I actually think they might be better off with Luke Falk than they were with Trevor Siemian. And Bill Belichick's, he wasn't saying this during his news conference this morning, but he did make a good point in his news conference this morning that Luke Falk actually was on the Dolphins last year. So he's had a full year in Adam Gase's offense, whereas Trevor Siemian didn't, and Sam Darnold certainly didn't. Darnold was on the Jets last year, so he was playing under a different offense, and I forgot where Siemian was last year, but it wasn't with Gase and the Dolphins. So if any quarterback on the planet or any quarterback on the Jets roster, any quarterback in the Jets building would have the best understanding of their offense, it probably would be Luke Falk.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Falk's not terrible, I don't think.
He was a sixth-round pick.
Maybe he's terrible, but he's a
sixth-round pick. Could be the next Tom Brady.
He's a guy that was talked about as a potential Patriots target going into last year's draft. Does have some similarities to Tom Brady. Doesn't seem to make a lot of mistakes, which I guess is good if you're kind of a third-string guy thrown into a situation like this. But yeah, we'll get into the Jets a little bit later. But this is a rough situation to be making your first NFL start in, both in terms of the players he has around him and the players he's going to be playing against.
For sure. The Patriots' game against the Dolphins went pretty much exactly as planned. Patriots' offense maybe not quite as high-powered as some people would have expected in that game, but the Patriots did still manage to win 43-0, really off of their defense, who shut out the Miami Dolphins, had 2 pick sixes, so 2 touchdowns. I guess we could start by talking about that defense. It's probably not the most talented defense in the NFL, but this team is just playing so well together that it's really hard for any opposing offense to do anything against them.
Yeah, there's really no weakness of this Patriots defense right now, or at least none that we've seen an opponent kind of be able to expose. Now, obviously, they haven't played the highest quality of competition yet, but overall, just top to bottom, from the defensive line to the pass rush to the linebackers to the secondary, you can't really pinpoint any kind of weak points here. I mean, they've got a million linebackers who can play pretty much anywhere in that front seven. Yeah. They've got probably the best secondary in the NFL, if not definitely kind of in their top 2 or 3. And even guys who you would think kind of on paper would be the quote-unquote kind of low men on the totem pole, guys like Adam Butler and Danny Shelton have been playing really, really well this season. So it seems like the sky is the limit for this unit right now. I mean, obviously, playing against the Dolphins, you can't really draw kind of huge conclusions since that offense is so bad and that offensive line is so bad, and Ryan Fitzpatrick has just looked really poor this season. But, I mean, their kind of playmaking ability and just what they've been able to do through these 2 games, and even going back to last season, because a lot of these defensive players are back from last year. I mean, they haven't allowed a touchdown since the AFC Championship game, which is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, some of the guys who have been – there really hasn't been a weak part on that defense. There have been guys who have been less productive than other players, but no one's really been standing out as, being subpar or anything on that defense so far, and some of the better players are like you mentioned, guys who are probably a little bit more under the radar, like Adam Butler. I would throw Jonathan Jones in that mix as well. Jones got the big new contract before the season, but he's been playing a ton of snaps on defense. I think he's the third leading defensive snap getter through two games. He's been playing free safety. He's been playing slot cornerback. I think he's played a little bit of outside cornerback as well. So, I mean, yeah, it's just 1 through 25 on that defensive roster. Everyone's really excelling right now. Stephon Gilmore's been really great through 2 weeks. He had maybe his best game as a Patriot on Sunday against the Dolphins when he had the pick six. He also had a pass breakup that led to an interception. So, yeah, just all in all, that unit is playing unbelievably well right now.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see when, because I don't even know when they're going to have their first real test. Maybe Browns when Cleveland comes to town. Because I haven't
really studied the schedule yet.
Yeah, well, it's Jets this week, which
and then Bills.
Jets, then Bills, and Bills could be difficult because Josh Allen kind of plays a sort of a different style. But then you get David Jones or Daniel Jones. I keep calling him David Jones. I don't know why.
Well, it's Redskins.
Oh, it's Redskins, and then Daniel Jones.
Yep.
And then the Jets again.
Right.
And then the Cleveland Browns, which on paper should be a good matchup. It should be fun to see kind of Stephon Gilmore against OBJ and all that. But, yeah, this is – we talked about it before the season. The early part of this Patriots schedule is incredibly easy, and it's very easy to envision them sitting at 5-6-0 coming into some of these more difficult stretches later on.
Yeah, I mean, that game against the Browns is 4 days before Halloween. So if you're one of those people who's complaining about Halloween decorations already being up in CVS or whatever, that's how long you have to wait until an actual, probably competitive Patriots game. And even the Browns, not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, I mean, they didn't look amazing against the Jets on Monday night. They beat them 23-3, but I mean, that easily could have been a much higher scoring game.
Yeah, they needed that late Odell Beckham touchdown, which really kind of broke it open for a while. Yeah, that was a game that with the talent that Cleveland has should have been a lot more lopsided than it was.
Antonio Brown did have 4 catches on 8 targets for 56 yards and a touchdown. He also had 1 5-yard carry in the Patriots win over the Miami Dolphins. I don't remember if I did project a stat line for Brown, but that's probably pretty much in line with what I would have guessed. Yeah. 4 catches, 50-ish yards, touchdown. All of those catches came in the first half. They really came in the first, 16 or 17 minutes of the game.
They came on his first 4 targets.
Yeah. And then the next 4 targets all went incomplete. At least one of those passes was maybe underthrown by Tom Brady. Some of them, even that one, could have been, some lack of chemistry between Brady and Brown. But, I mean, overall, it's kind of surprising that Brown was the Patriots' leading receiver in that game, since this is a team with James White, Julian Edelman, and Josh Gordon. Those 3 guys just didn't really totally get going in this game. But Brown, it was a good first start for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, as you mentioned, kind of similar to what we would have expected. Kind of similar to Josh Gordon's debut last year. Gordon played 18 snaps in that game. Antonio Brown played 24. But
and Gordon only had 2 catches.
Gordon had 2. He had 2 catches. He drew a pass interference. Right. Antonio Brown also drew a pass interference in this game.
True. Yep.
So he was a little bit more active than Josh Gordon was in his first game last year. But I think this is something that you'll just see kind of continue to grow, because he'd only been on the practice field for 3 days before this game. And as you mentioned, there were some instances where it seemed kind of he turned and looked one way, and Tom Brady's pass was kind of 3 or 4 yards the other way. So it's just sort of getting on the same page and sort of kind of getting both comfortable with this offense and comfortable with just the way that Tom Brady likes to do things. And assuming that he remains eligible and stays on the field and all that, I'm guessing that'll just continue to grow over the course of the season. And it's another kind of benefit for the Patriots to have such an easy early season schedule, that they can try out some things if they want to, or they can kind of ease him into an offense in a way. It's not like he's joining the team in week 15 and they've got to kind of like crash course him, get him up to date right away. This can be a gradual process, especially with how many weapons they do have on offense.
For sure, and we don't know how long Antonio Brown will be on this roster, and then if he at some point comes off the roster, we don't know at what point he might be back on the roster. It seems like he is expected to play on Sunday against the Jets. It doesn't seem like the NFL's investigation has progressed to the point where Roger Goodell would put him on the commissioner's exempt list. The NFL reportedly did meet with Antonio Brown's accuser, Brittany Taylor, for 10 hours on Monday. I don't know what you could possibly be doing for 10 hours, but I don't know. I mean, there's multiple ways that I guess you could look at the fact that it took 10 hours. My initial thought is that if there was nothing there, then I'm not sure how it possibly could have taken 10 hours. At the same time, if there was so much evidence against Brown, then it's certainly possible that Goodell would have placed him on that commissioner's exempt list on Monday or Tuesday. So basically, we don't know what's going on with that case. I don't think anyone really does other than Roger Goodell, Antonio Brown, and Brittany Taylor, really.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of draw any conclusions from this situation. Either way, as you mentioned, it's notable that they did have this very long meeting yesterday, and he hasn't been disciplined in any way by the league, but you don't know if they're still just kind of building a case and that will happen down the line. So this is really kind of again, it's so hard to predict how this is going to play out. I've got to imagine it's hard for the Patriots too, which is probably why they're just operating as normal, I guess, as normal as you can be in this situation. It's a tough situation. It's going to continue to be a tough situation until there's some resolution one way or the other, and who knows when that will be.
Antonio Brown did not speak to the media last week, either before the game or directly after the game. Also didn't speak to the media on Monday. So a fine could be incoming for Antonio Brown for avoiding the media based on some social media postings. He was with his family after the game, but it is still in a player's contract to speak to the media. So those complaints have been lodged to the NFL. We'll see what happens. We'll see if he actually does talk at any point. It's certainly possible that he won't. I think that I wasn't covering the team in 2011, but from everything that I heard, Chad Johnson was basically silent for the entire season.
Really?
So that could be the same way that this goes with Antonio Brown. We'll see. Right now it's Wednesday, so I mean, I guess we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. One other note on the Dolphins. I mean, we talked about last week, but that roster is
it's bad.
Horrendous.
It's really bad.
They traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick after the game, so it's actually gotten even worse. Did you see the clip of Kalen Ballage, or did you see it live when Kalen Ballage ducked when Ryan Fitzpatrick threw him a pass on Sunday?
I did. Yeah, it was a rough day for Kalen Ballage. He also was the guy who had a pass go into his chest and then spin around his body.
He basically handed the ball to Jamie Collins.
Yeah, it was bad, man. You kind of felt for him, too, because you could see he was really torn up about it on the sideline afterwards. But this team, it's just a bad
team. The clip
team.
of him ducking was... It's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm running a route. Like, why are you throwing the ball at me? What the hell, man? Are you throwing a ball at my head?
Just leave me alone. Come on. Oh, man, this was...
Just leave me in peace.
This Dolphins team is incredibly bad. I mean, we mentioned how untalented they were last week, and they continued to get more untalented between last week and this week. You mentioned them trading Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I think it hadn't happened before, but when Julian Davenport, their right tackle, went on injured reserve, they started Jamarcus Webb at right tackle, and he did not have a very good game. Safe to say that offensive line as a whole is rough, and I don't know. It's Josh Rosen has the worst luck, man.
Yeah.
Like, how does this is the worst possible situation for. I mean, maybe it's worse for him to be hanging out in Arizona and be backing up Kyler Murray, but this is. I do not see how he can improve as a player and improve his stock in any way this season if the Dolphins are just throwing him in at the end of blowouts and letting him get smashed by opposing pass rushes. Because his very first snap was Chase Winovich's first sack, which he just got absolutely buried on the play, and it's tough, man. I don't know how these players are going to be able to handle this throughout the course of the whole season, because we were talking about it right after the game. It's not like it's one thing to be bad. Most teams are bad in their first year under a new head coach. It's one thing to go 4-12 or 3-13, but have a couple close games in there and sort of show some fight and have some kind of pieces that at least you can build on. the Dolphins have gotten absolutely demolished in these last two games, and they're trading away most of the players, most of the pieces that they can build on. I mean, I appreciated the tweet from Xavier Howard the other night after Minka Fitzpatrick got traded. It was just the Fresh Prince gif of Will Smith standing in an empty living room looking around. That basically has to be what it feels like down in Miami right now.
Yeah, there's two things on that. First of all, it's amazing that the Dolphins have already let up over 100 points on the season.
Yeah.
And it's week 2. Because I don't know at what point the Patriots will let up their 100th point. I think it was Chris Price tweeted out some of the better Patriots defenses of this dynasty, and I think in 2006 the Patriots let up like 139 points all year. So
that's insane.
The Dolphins are already almost at that point, or they're on pace to be that point after 3 games. The second of which is that Chris Grier is the Dolphins general manager, and I can understand Brian Flores wanting to trade guys who, he didn't have a say in bringing in. But Chris Grier has been with the Dolphins since 2007. He's been their GM since 2016. So it's not as if these are guys that they're trading before, he came before the whole regime came in. Like, he's been around since 2007. Like I said, he's been GM since 2016. So these are his guys that he's trading away from them. And actually, he was an area scout starting in 2000 with the Dolphins. So, yeah, he's been there for as long as Belichick has been with the Patriots. It's like, it seems crazy to be trading your first-round pick from 2018 already. Granted, they got a good trade out of it. They got the Steelers' first-round pick in 2020. But still, it's odd to be so high in a player 12 months ago and then ship him out 12 minutes.
And when was Minka Fitzpatrick drafted? 11th last year?
Yeah.
So what are the chances that, this is a dicey trade for the Steelers because there's a chance if Mason Rudolph is not good that they could be very bad and that could be a very high draft pick. But Steelers typically finish kind of somewhere in the middle of the league or near the top. If they go on a bit of a run and that draft pick turns into number 23,
right?
You traded the 11th pick last year for the 23rd pick next year.
Yeah.
That doesn't look good on an organization.
Right. Yeah. I think overall, they've acquired so many picks that they're certainly set up for success at some point. I just don't know if the roster will be talented enough to kind of supplement those first-round picks when they start reaching their peak. But we'll just have to see over the next 2 or 3 years. Let's get going on the Jets. This is a team that is bad, but not quite as bad as the Dolphins. They'd certainly be a lot more dangerous if Sam Darnold was their quarterback, but like we mentioned earlier, it almost certainly will be Luke Falk. They also brought in David Fales.
David Fales, yeah.
So it probably will be Falk. Belichick certainly did his best to talk up this Jets game in his Wednesday morning press conference. They've got Le'Veon Bell. They've got Jamison Crowder. They've got Robbie Anderson. There's at least more names that and can make big plays. But still, this is overall, with Luke Falk running the show, not a great team.
Yeah, this is a team that should be better than it is right now, I think. The Jets were getting a little bit of buzz during the spring and the summer as potentially being that team who could maybe not contend with the Patriots, but at least sort of be in that postseason mix. And now there's still a possibility that could happen if Sam Darnold kind of returns soon and they get some of the defensive players back that are injured right now. C.J. Mosley and Quinnen Williams both missed the last game with injuries, and I don't believe they practiced today, so who knows if either of them will be available for this game. C.J. Mosley has one of the 2 touchdowns that the Jets have scored this season.
Wow.
But Le'Veon Bell's been good. He's been better than I expected him to look after missing all of last season. Voluntarily missing all of last season, I should add. Bill Belichick said this morning that he looks fresh, which was a nice little line. But no, he's been good. He's been pretty solid as a rusher, and he's been very productive catching the ball so far. It looked like he was trying significantly harder than a lot of Jets players late in that Browns game the other night. But yeah, overall, this offense is a mess. They've scored 1 offensive touchdown, tied with the Dolphins and the Bears for the fewest in the NFL this season. They're second to last in points per game, second to last in yards per game, ahead of only the Dolphins. I believe they're also second to last or in the bottom 2 or 3 in yards per attempt, yards per pass attempt, which is funny when you look at Luke Falk's passing line the other night. He completed 80% of his passes, but it was a very kind of Sam Bradford-esque effort where we're kind of a lot of short dump-offs to Le'Veon Bell. And I don't know. I cannot see any possible way that the Patriots lose this game to the Jets at home. I think they're most of the sports books I've seen have them at 22.5 right now. I've seen as high as 24, and who knows how much more that'll fluctuate over the final 4 or 5 days we have before kickoff. But yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to go back and look this up, but can you remember the last time? It's probably back in 2007 where they were 18-plus point favorites in back-to-back weeks.
I don't think it's ever happened.
Yeah,
there's no way, right?
I don't know. I have to go back. I know they had some crazy lines for some of those 2007 games.
I'd be surprised if any team has been 18-point favorites in consecutive weeks. I mean, it's almost somewhat surprising. I know that it's the home road thing, but it's somewhat surprising to me the Patriots are bigger favorites this week than they were against the Dolphins last week because, I mean, like I said, it is interesting looking at this Jets roster, though, because people were high on them coming into the season. They have big names on defense, but the rest of the starters are like kind of filler level players. Like they've got Leonard Williams, they've got Henry Anderson, they've got Quinnen Williams, C.J. Mosley, Jamal Adams, and then Tremaine Johnson. But beyond that, like you're talking about guys like Darryl Roberts, you're talking about guys like Neville Hewitt, you're talking about guys like Steve McClendon. Like
they're starting cornerbacks the other night were Darryl Roberts and Nate Hairston because Tremaine Johnson got benched. Yeah. So that was
Marcus May's been heavily involved as well.
He had some rough moments the other night too as well. Yeah, it's definitely, it seems like a very kind of wannabe way of building a team where you kind of go out and get a bunch of big names.
Big names, but
they don't have that middle class that's allowed teams like the Patriots to be so successful over the years.
Yeah, the Patriots. I mean, it's just a lot of, like I said, a lot of filler in there. But I mean, there's no real like keys for this game for the Patriots. Like, just do what you're gonna do.
I'm interested in watching Stephon Gilmore against Robbie Anderson. Yeah, that's been a very fun matchup over the last 2 or 3 years because I think Stephon Gilmore hates Robbie Anderson and it's hilarious. He's one of the few receivers. Stephon Gilmore always has these kind of little subtle jabs at people after games. Robbie Anderson is one of the only receivers that he'll just kind of openly talk trash about after the game. Last year when I think he held in the 2 games before the Jets came here late last season, Robbie Anderson had totaled something like 230, 240 yards. Then he came here and caught, I think, one or two passes for 30 yards. And we asked Stephon Gilmore after the game, like, would you do to kind of slow him down? He was a guy that was so productive. He's just like, he's small and skinny, like, be physical with him and he can't handle it. And I was like, all right, fair enough. That works.
Easy enough.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch. I'm sure we'll probably see that matchup again this week, even though they do have Jamison Crowder in there, but he's probably not going to be a guy that Gilmore is going to be.
He's more of a slot guy, so I'd assume it's probably going to be Jonathan Johnson, Jamison Crowder. Demaryius Thomas is on that team, but he left Monday night's game with a hamstring injury that was bothering him before the Jets traded for him. Maybe in the future don't trade for someone that is injured. Kind of a weird move there, but Quincy Enunwa also on IR. Tight end Chris Herndon is still suspended. So, I mean, in an ideal situation, a Jets team with Sam Darnold and all these guys that I mentioned who aren't playing would certainly be a lot better than they are in their current state of affairs. I've seen Adam Gase be criticized a lot for this Jets performance. In week 1, I can understand it. In week 2 on Monday night, with Trevor Siemian and Luke Falk as your quarterback, I don't really know how much better they could have done. I think that Bill Belichick really likes Adam Gase.
He seems to, yeah.
He seemed to go out of his way this morning in his Wednesday morning press conference to really praise him. It was really the first thing that he said was about Adam Gase. So that's, certainly he's got Belichick on his side, but it certainly hasn't been a good first 2 weeks for Adam Gase.
No, it absolutely has not. And really hasn't been a good couple months for Adam Gase, going back all the way back to that introductory press conference where his eyes were trying to jump out of his head. And yeah, it's just kind of same old Jets at the moment down in New York. It always seems like they're going to kind of turn a corner each year. I feel like they get hyped up more than the Bills and the Dolphins each year, probably just because they play in New York. But yeah, so far they just haven't been able to put anything together.
Let's play America's favorite game, where we try to guess where a player that we've never heard of went to school, and we also are going to do a separate game where we test one another on where players went to school. That we know where they went to school, and the other person, we're going to try to see if they don't. So, first of all, player that we can both agree on. Do you know where Lorenzo Fatukasi went?
I think I might actually.
Really?
I probably don't. He strikes me as like a Washington State guy. I feel like I remember him in the draft a couple years ago.
I was going to guess Utah, but let's see. UConn.
Oh,
I did know that.
I did not know that at all.
That's the Polynesian player who went to UConn.
The one?
The one. Yep, that's him.
Oh, yeah, they call him Foley.
Foley Fatukasi. All right, I think we actually did that one last time. So let's do one more here. I usually prefer someone with more of an out there.
How about Bronson?
I do know where he went. I do.
Was he a UW guy?
No, he was a BYU guy, actually.
Fair enough.
I think. Let's see.
No, he was. There
BYU.
You go. All right, we need another one then.
Do you know where Matthias Farley went?
You mean Indianapolis Colts legend Matthias Farley?
Yes.
No, I'm going to say Illinois.
Did he go to Purdue? Notre Dame. I knew it was.
We had the same kind of general region.
All right. Is there a player on this list who you think that I don't know where they went to school?
All right. Let me take a look here.
That you do know.
That I do know. Probably.
Do you know where? I'll start off. Do you know where Jonathan Harrison went? Center, number 78.
I don't. I know his name because he spells it Jonothan, which is crazy, but I do not know where he went. Where did he go?
I think he went to Florida. Did he go to Florida? He went to Florida.
There we go.
1-0.
There we go. All right. Where did Trevon Wesco go?
Trevon Wesco. Did he go to West Virginia?
He did go to West Virginia.
Yep, man.
I remember looking at him when we were doing exhaustive tight end research before this draft. So I think this part of the game needs a little fine tuning, but I think I like the addition.
Yeah, no, I think it's tough because I was actually going to test you on Bronson Kaufusi, but that all went to hell in a handbasket. So that will do it for this week's NESN Patriots podcast. Unless you had anything else to say.
No, I think that's good.
So we will be back next week recapping the Jets game, previewing the aforementioned Bills game, and keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kyde. Follow Zach on Twitter at ZachCoxNESN. And on Sunday morning, tune in to the pregame chat with me, Matt Chatham, and possibly Zach Cox if he makes it back from Rochester, New York, in a planes, trains, and automobile situation before 11:30 or 11 or whenever the show's going to be.
I will be tired regardless, but I'll do my best to be there.